恭请法王圣尊莲松活佛，升法王座。
we welcome our lineage Guru, His Holiness Living Buddha Liansheng, to preside over Red Jambala Homa fire offering ceremony. Now we are inviting His Holiness to bless the prayers of the primary supplicants. The offering of Hatha. Let's join our palms with reverence, and we are inviting Master Lian Ho to present the offering of Hatha to the lineage Guru as a symbol of the highest honor on behalf of all of us. The Red Jambala Homa has now begun. Visualize through Buddha lineage. Namo Vairukana Buddha, Namo Buddha Lokana, Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Padma Kumara, Namo Living Buddha Liansheng. Visualize Grandmaster and all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas sitting on top of our heads, radiating light to bless us. Recite Padma Kumara mantra.
Om Guru Liansheng Siddhi Hom. 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 做四无量观，观想右手边有父系。
Perform the visualization of the four immeasurables. Visualize ancestors and relatives from the father's side to your right, from the mother's side to your left. From friends and teachers behind us. From enemies and karmic creditors in front of us. All sentient beings around us, together practicing tantric dharma and ultimately attaining Buddhahood. Clap twice and snap your fingers to awaken the deities. Recite purification mantras.
Om Siuli Siuli Maha Siuli Siuli Soha. Om Siudoli Siudoli Siumoli Siumoli Soha. Om Wadalan He Hom. Namo Samato Modolan Om Duru Duru Dewi Soha.
Recite invocation mantra.
Hom Soha. Om Ah Hom Soha. Om Ah Hom Soha.
We sincerely invoke our lineage Guru, His Holiness Living Buddha Liansheng. Namo White Maha Padma Kumara. Namo Lotus Lights of Mastery Buddha. Namo True Buddha School Lineage Gurus. We sincerely invoke the main deity of Homa. Namo Red Jambala. We sincerely invoke the main deity of Homa. Namo Red Jambala. We sincerely invoke the main deity of Homa. Namo Red Jambala. Namo Golden Mother of the Primordial Jet Thorns. Namo 5 Dhyani Buddhas. Namo 2 Buddhas, Gold 8 Primary Deities. Namo Yamantaka. Namo Akayanatha. Namo 4 Heavenly Kings. Sima Bodhisattva. Rainbow temples, all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Herukas, Dhammapalas, Dakinis, and divinities. All the deities enshrined at the True Buddha Tantric Quarter, at the Seattle Lizang Temple, and at their southern mountain abode. Rainbow temples, mountain god, earth god, plant god, wind god, water god, heavenly fire god, dragon gods, and all divinities, as well as the city god, to please radiate light and bless his Homa. Great homage using visualization for student Guru and all Buddhas. Visualize for position on the ground, release the mudra, second to all Bodhisattvas. Visualize for position on the ground, release the mudra, third to all Herukas and Dhamma protectors. Visualize for position on the ground, release the mudra, fourth half bow. Great mandala offering from the offering mudra. Visualize the transformations of the offerings to become innumerable to fill the whole cosmic space. Make the offering above to the lineage root Guru. All the lineage gurus, the main deity of Homa, the red Jambala, and all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Herukas, Dhammapalas, Dakinis, and divinities, and below to all sentient beings. Mount Meru, four continents, and sun and moon transform into precious offerings for the Buddhas. May these wondrous treasures and marriage purge our karma to all of our civilization. For fourth refuge, visualize our lineage root Guru, all the lineage Gurus, and Buddha Jewel, Dharma Jewel, Sangha Jewel, to form bright white light to empower us. We said the refuge mantra. Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaye, Namo Dhammaye, Namo Sankhyaye. Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaye, Namo Dhammaye, Namo Sankhyaye. Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaye, Namo Dhammaye, Namo Sankhyaye. Armor protection, form Vajraklaps mudra, reset Vajrapani mantra 7 times. Om Boyolanjali, Om Boyolanjali, Om Boyolanjali, Om Boyolanjali, Om Boyolanjali, Om Boyolanjali, Om Boyolanjali. Inviting this holiness living Buddha Linseng to perform blessings with mala. Inviting His Holiness Living Buddha Lien Sung to set ceremonial demarcation to bless the registration forms, homework cards, and all the offering items. Please stand up and join our palms with reverence, and we're inviting His Holiness to perform the ritual of opening the Homa fire pit, to lit the Homa fire, to set ceremonial demarcation around it, to make all the offerings, and to perform mudra transformations for purifications, enrichments, magnetization, subjugation, and pardu deliverance. Let us all chant the heart mantra of the red Jambala.
Yes.
加持八大本尊心咒及念佛。Om 阿弥陀佛 Om Mani Padme Hum Om Panamo Litolim Soha Om Ha 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 为什么耶 Soha Om 这里主力准提 Soha Om 真巴拉查能查拉耶 Soha Om 阿吽贝扎咕噜贝玛西迪吽塞 Om 阿吽咕噜贝阿呵萨萨玛哈连生西迪吽。给亚他唵贝卡兹亚贝卡兹亚玛哈贝卡兹亚拉扎萨摩卡德黑梭哈。南无36万亿11万9500同名同号阿弥陀佛。南无36万亿11万9500同名同号阿弥陀佛。南无36万亿11万9500同名同号阿弥陀佛。请大家起念，请
Recite the supplication to the Buddha Guru to stay in the Sahara. I pay homage and supplicate His Holiness, the virtuous and marvelous Tantrika, all Buddhas of the 10 directions, compassionate Bodhisattvas, Herukas, Dhammapalas, and Dakinis, protectors of Dharma. The nights are long, the 3 poisons are proliferating. My body and soul are stricken, tumbling in the misery of perpetual rebirth. With great compassion, His Holiness came to this world to salvage the deluded ones. 3 jewels emanate wondrous light to provide refuge for all. All fortunate beings, human and devas, lie on His Vajra body, with the bestow of teachings, vows, precepts, empowerments, and attainments. We disciples of Buddha plead that you stay in the Sahara world to turn the Dharma wheel, to benefit and give happiness to multitudes of sentient beings. Many dedication. May all uphold the Buddha, ascend to the realm of utmost bliss, repaying fourfold generosities from above, aiding those in the 3 realms below. Upon seeing the Buddha, may we transcend life and to Buddha's school disciples wholeheartedly pray to the main deity of Homa today, the tantric wealth deity Ganapati, the Vajrambala. By the great power of your elephant trunk, please protect our lineage Guru with great health, energy, and spirit. Please bestow infinite wealth, resources, and wonderful affinity, happiness, longevity, and continual lineage of Buddha Tantric Dharma. Inviting His Holiness Living Buddha Lian Sung to perform the overall merit dedication. Wholeheartedly we pay homage to Ganapati, the red Jambala. Wholeheartedly we pay homage to Ganapati, the red Jambala. Wholeheartedly we pay homage to Ganapati, the red Jambala. Let's invoke the 5 Dhyani Buddhas to guide the birth of spirits to be reborn into the pure Buddhaverse. By the vows of the red Jambala, please bestow spiritual cultivators all needed resources in the daily necessities of houses, food, clothes, transport. And please bestow upon sentient beings safety, fulfillment. Please bestow peace and ease. To Ganapati, the red Jambala, please bless all spiritual cultivators with diligence, endowed with wisdom. Please bless us with the proper wealth, dharma wealth, and windfalls, so that we are content. We pray to Ganapati, the red Jambala. To shine forth red light, so that we have harmony, love, and respect. Please shine forth white light to eradicate calamities. Please shine forth yellow light to fulfill our resources. Please shine forth blue light to subdue the enemies and enmities. To Ganapati, the red Jambala. Gods in heavens, gods on earth, may be far from all calamities, may all calamities abandon us. Let all disasters turn into dust. Please bless all beings with the disappearance of virus. May the enemies and enmities disappear. The pandemic vanish. All bad thoughts disappear and bad affinities disappear. To Ganapati, the red Jambala, may all of our prayers be granted. May all bad lucks disappear.
念百字离咒。Om Beja Sato Samaya Manupanaya Beja Sato Tenupadicha Zezo Me Bawa Soto Kayu Me Bawa Sopo Kayu Me Bawa Anolato Me Bawa Sawa Hasidi Me Budaya Cha Sawa Gama Suta Me Jitamu Sri Yen Guru Ho Ha 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 He Bhagavan Sawa Tatha Gata Bezama Mimencha Bez Bawa Maha Samaya Sato Ahom Pei Om Beja Sato Samaya Manupanaya Beja Sato Tenupadicha Zezo Me Bawa Soto Kayu Me Bawa Sopo Kayu Me Bawa Anolato Me Bawa Sawa Hasidi Me Budaya Cha Sawa Gama Suta Me Jitamu Sri Yen Guru Ho Ha 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 He Bhagavan Sawa Tatha Gata Bezama Mimencha Bez Bawa Maha Samaya Sato Ahom Pei Om Beja Sato Samaya Manupanaya Beja Sato Tenupadicha Zezo Me Bawa Soto Kayu Me Bawa Sopo Kayu Me Bawa Anolato Me Bawa Sawa Hasidi Me Budaya Cha Sawa Gama Suta Me Jitamu Sri Yen Guru Ho Ha 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 He Bhagavan Sawa Tatha Gata Bezama Mimencha Bez Bawa Maha Samaya Sato Ahom Pei。做观想大礼拜，100根本传承上师及诸佛。Om Hom 观想顶礼，回天心三印，200诸菩萨。Om Hom 观想顶礼，回天心三印，300诸护法金刚。Om Hom 观想顶礼，回天心三印，是平等一起手。念圆满咒 Om Brim Om Brim Om Brim Om Mani Padme Hum。让我们以热烈的掌声感谢根本上师法王圣尊莲生活佛主坛红财神护摩法会。请大家恭敬合掌，恭请法王圣尊莲生活佛做宝贵的法语开示。
Let us join our palms with reverence and together we invite His Holiness to bestow the precious Dharma teachings. Let's pay homage to the lineage gurus, to the Venerable Mang Liao Ming, to Master Sakya Cheng-Kung, to His Holiness, the 16 Karmapa, and to Master Thupten Dorje. And let's pay homage to the 3 jewels of the altar. And the main deity of Homa today, Ganapati, the Rajamala. Sunu, Tanzan Katso, Tutan City. All Dharma masters, Dharma educators, Dharma teachers, Dharma lecturers, Dharma assistants, directors of temples and chapters, and all disciples present here and over the internet. Good afternoon, everyone. How do you do?
Hola amigo, que quiero mucho. Skoin, Ichiban, Kimoji, Jimmy, Yabi, Bring, Konnichiwa. 那今天我们主要是做红财神的护摩。
Today, we perform the Homa of Red
大
Jambala.
家也都知道，
And we all know about the Red Jambala.
象鼻财神
That's the elephant trunk wealth deity or fortune god.
遇到这个
I remember when I visited India,
的生日，
it happened to be the birthday of Red Jambala.
这New Delhi
So in New Delhi,
他
on that day, they had the fireworks.
到处都是烟火，哇，放烟火。
Everywhere there were
这
fireworks.
个红财神
They were celebrating the birthday of Red Jambala.
红财神在印度教里面
In Hinduism,
应该是属于第四大了。
Ganapati is considered the fourth
除了
in line, fourth major gods
布拉玛
after the creator Brahma, the protector god Vishnu,
跟破坏神
and the destroyer god
三
Shiva.
大神，
They were the Trinity,
那
the three major gods. And Ganesh, or Red Jambala, was the son of Shiva.
那到了西藏密宗的时候啊，
And in Tibetan Tantrayana, 到了西藏密宗的时候，就引请他 so
做
at the Tibetan Tantrayana,
藏密的资粮主。
he's the
这
Tibetan
个藏
tantric wealth deity.
属于五大财神之一。
So in Tibet, he's one of the five major wealth deities.
主要的财神，
It's it's a main wealth deity.
这个藏密呢的
In Tibetan Tantrayana, the five wealth deities are the yellow Jambala, red Jambala, green Jambala, white Jambala, and black Jambala.
那红财神呢，他另外一只手是拿着这个罗卜的叶子，
One of his hands is holding the carrot leaves, and
它主要
what for
罗
is
卜的叶子
or are the carrot leaves? They say that
数每一个人的财富，
he's counting the wealth of
掌管
each
每个人
person.
的财富。
He's in charge of the assets or wealth of everyone.
财富呢，就是由他来掌管的，他能够知道
So he's in charge and he knows how much wealth each one of us is endowed with.
他要得到这个红财神的这个赐福啊，
And
有一个方法，
there is a way to get
就是要
the bestowal from Red Jambala.
这个
The method is to make offering to him,
这个他喜欢是萝卜，
because we know he loves carrots.
那像那个 banana
And
香
bananas.
蕉，他也喜欢。他的食物就是萝卜，
So he eats carrots and bananas.
那你还供养最重要的供养是什么？
And the main offering is dance, Vajra songs, Vajra dances, Vajra play, and Vajra beauty. These 5 things. So, Vajra beauty is when you pay homage to the Rajambala, you need to bathe, cleanse your body, and you need to dress up and beautify yourself. And for the men, they need to dress neatly, and the woman should dress up. That's what he likes. So this flowery, so the flower embellishment or beautifying. So if you use offerings of ornaments and embellishment, that would be wonderful. Can I pick up this statue? So, if you dress up like that or beautify yourself like that, that's called the Vajra beauty. So today, when Grandmaster invoked the Rajambala, I did visualize Vajra song, Vajra dance, Vajra play, and Vajra beauty or beautician, or as offering to Rajambala, and he seemed to be very happy. And since he was very happy, he would bestow to everyone wealth. Someone asked me what Vajra song, Vajra dance, Vajra play, Vajra beauty is. So today I have explained what Vajra beauty is about. And Vajra song, Vajra dance, and Vajra play cannot be talked about here. It is confidential or secret. Vajra song, Vajra dance, and Vajra play cannot be talked about publicly. If you ask me in private, I will tell you. And if you don't ask, I will not tell. And Grandmaster visualize Vajra song, Vajra dance, Vajra beauty, Vajra play. The Vajra song.
金刚歌呢，在藏这都接 Luten 都接
In Tibetan,
都
Dorje
接 Luten 都接嘎，就是金刚歌跟金刚舞。
Dorje Luten and Dorje Ka are Vajra song and Vajra dance.
金刚路
One of the words may not be right.
金刚嘎
Vajra
就是金
Ka,
刚舞，
that's Vajra dance.
金刚路
Dorje.
天，就是金属于金刚舞。
So Vajra Lute should be Vajra dance.
因为是金刚歌、金刚舞、金刚嬉戏，是不能讲。
So Vajra song, Vajra dance, and Vajra play cannot be talked about publicly, and that's the best way to offer to Red Jambala.
那它的这个来源呢，
His origin
就是这个嘎拉巴蒂是那个希瓦
Ganapati
帕尔瓦蒂，他的
was the son of Shiva and Parvati.
所生的小孩就是甘女。
Ganesh or Red Jambala.
那现在通知大家呢，
Now I would like to announce one next Sunday, May 29th at 3 p.m.
是牵手牵眼观
There will
世
be
音
the thousand-eye, thousand-arm Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva Homa fire offering ceremony.
哇，这一尊是这个不得了的。
This deity
在这
is
个
remarkable.
千烧法传的超度里面，
In my Bardo deliverance
那个
of the thousand-eye, thousand-arm Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, of the Bardo deliverance of the thousand vessels, I saw
它也就是第
him descending numerous times.
它一共有11个头，
And he has 11 heads,
就11地的菩萨，
symbolizing the 11th ground of Bodhisattvahood,
等是佛了，
which is the same as
千
Buddhahood.
手千眼观世音菩萨，
Thousand-armed, thousand-eyed Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva
是所有观世音菩萨当中，其中一尊很有 power 的观世音菩萨，
has
就是最有
that has the most power, or the very powerful of all the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattvas.
千烧法禅的
The
里面，千手
thousand vessel Bardo
帮
deliverance,
助我最多，
the thousand-eyed, thousand-armed Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva helped me the most.
1000只手
One time I saw
拿着
all of his hands, 1,000 hands were holding 1,000 Dharma vessels,
全部拿着，
Dharma ships.
刚好是1000个法禅，
One time, that's what I
千
saw,
烧法禅
exactly 1,000 of them.
有这样的事，然后
So something happened,
千烧法禅
and Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva,
只手
after
法禅，
taking the Dharma
这
vessel
样子用以身
on his
到
hands,
西方极乐世界去。
and by soul travel, divine travel, he brought them to Sukhavati, the Western
9日
Buddhaverse Pure Land.
是非常好的这个
So the Homa on May 29th is truly
很
wonderful
难得了，很难得的一个好。
and a rare Homa.
这个人啊，
People after middle age will find out the true face of life in this world. The one that can wake you up every day is not your dreams and not the alarm, not your kids and not your wives, but it's your bladder. That makes sense. After we live to be 70s or after 80s, if you don't wear any diaper, that means you succeed. Some people in their 70s or 80s would have to wear diapers when they sleep at night. Right, in the grocery stores, they sell diapers. You would have never thought, if you don't, then you are considered a successful person, and Grandmaster is one of them. However, the one that wakes me up often is not the alarm clock. Sumu doesn't wake me up anymore. Before she did, but not now. So not Sumu, not the alarm clock, but that thing, XX. I remember this joke about cannibals. The chief of a cannibal tribe asked his subordinates to hunt for people to eat. How about the nobilities? No, that's too greasy. How about just the common people? And the chief said no. The common people suffered a lot, so they're bitter. I remember two other jokes about cannibals. So father and son were hiding in the forest trying to hunt for people. And a lady like Master Hui Jin was walking by, round and fat. And the son asked the dad, "Is this good?" And dad said, "Nah, too greasy, too fat." And then there's another one that looks like Lian Xu. The Reverend Lian Xu, very skinny and bony. So the son asked, "How about this one? Is it good?" And dad said, "Oh, just skin. Too bony. No meat." So let him pass by. And then there's a charming, beautiful lady. And with nice figure, slim and tall, and the son asks the dad, how about this one? Is this good? And dad said, okay, let's capture her, and then we'll eat your mom.
这食人族的笑话。
This is joke.
这个酋长，坐飞机啊，那个航空小姐就。
So the chief of the cannibal tribe was flying on an airplane, and the stewardess asked him,
"Do
you want chicken or beef?"
哇 ，beef。食人族的酋长就说：“我都不要。”
And he said, "None of that. But do you have
乘客的名单吗？
the name list of the passengers?"
飞机上乘客的名单，这是食人族的笑话。
So those are jokes about the cannibals.
儿子问父亲：“爸爸，什么是酒？”
The son asked Dad, "So Dad, what is a
在晚上
drunkard?"
就指着天上。
And at night, Dad pointed to the sky.
天上有几个月亮？
Take a look. How many moons are there in the sky? And the son said, 1.
2个月亮。
And Dad said, "No, 2.
月亮。
And the son said, "No, it's 1. And he kept saying 2.
那爸爸就告诉儿子：“当你看到2个月亮的时候，就是醉了。”
Dad told the son, "When you see 2 moons, then you're drunk." 好，现在进入你问我答。 Now we'll do the Q&A. Question from Australia.
这个读作少吧，
音
乐的音，一个招。
How do you pronounce this character?
招啊，
少。
莲花少风，我吹里啊，莲花少风问。
莲花少风。
顶礼师尊佛啊。
Homage to Guy Master. Peace be with you.
大概需要30分。
In my 4 preliminary practice, I spend about 30 minutes for the beginning part of the practice. When I reach the main part, I have so many running thoughts that I cannot sit still. It doesn't work well. And when I practice only the main part, i.e. visualization and mantra chanting, do I need to first chant the purification mantras, invocation, great homage offering, for refuge, armor protection first, and afterwards do I need to dedicate the merit? I practice the 4 preliminary practice and I spend about 30 minutes for the beginning part. When I reach the main part, I have so many running thoughts and cannot sit still. It doesn't work well. So, separately, when I practice only the main part, which is the visualization and mantra chanting, do I also need to first chant the purification mantras, invocation, homage offering, for refuge and armor protection first? Do you understand what he's asking?
你们听得懂吗？
The question is unclear. So if you have many running thoughts, that's normal. If you don't have running thoughts, then that would be abnormal. No one is an exception. So don't think that having running thoughts is not working well. Please don't think that way. Let me tell you, everyone has myriad thoughts, and you cannot stop them. It is difficult, very difficult, to change them into one thought, which is samadhi. If you only have one thought, then you have entered samadhi. So having myriad thoughts, that's normal. At the beginning of spiritual cultivation, everyone has the running thoughts, and they are like the waterfalls. It's non-stop. It's never stopped. Have you seen a waterfall that the water ceases and then continues later? No, it's continual. So as a human being, we have many thoughts. So in your spiritual practice too, you would have lots of thoughts. So you just let it be. Just take it naturally. Just continue and finish it. So to ask you to do 9-cycle Buddha breathing is to teach you to concentrate on your breathing. Once you concentrate, then you are single-minded, and then you enter samadhi, and then you do treasure base energy yoga and enter samadhi. So let me tell you this first. So you have so many myriad thoughts and you cannot sit still. But you should continue to sit even when you have myriad thoughts, because thoughts are normal. And they will gradually decrease. And because you do the 9-cycle Buddha breathing, then it would be more normal. There are many ways to eradicate the myriad thoughts. I've talked about it many times. So you train to gradually decrease your myriad thoughts. When you empty your mind by visualizing emptiness, and then you visualize the yidam, chant the yidam's mantra, and you need to chant the purification mantras, invocation, homage offering, fourfold refuge, armor protection. They're all needed. The same when we do Homa, we also do the great homage using visualization, offering, fourfold refuge, chant the mantra, armor protection, using the Vajrapani. And the merit dedication is at the end of your practice. And when you practice the 4 preliminary practice, at the end of each of the preliminary practice, you need to merit dedication. At the end of your Dhamma practice, you dedicate the merit, and then you exit the samadhi. In the Vimalakirti Sutra, it was mentioned. So if you still enter samadhi and exit samadhi, that would be different from Vimalakirti. Vimalakirti is different. He did not enter samadhi, he did not exit samadhi, because he's in samadhi at any time. There is no such thing as exiting samadhi. So is it the case that sometimes when you're in samadhi you become the yidam, but when you exit samadhi you're not the yidam? No such thing. It's mentioned in the Vimalakirti Sutra. So you, spiritual cultivators, are still talking about entering and exiting samadhi? Like the arhats would be entering samadhi, and when they open their eyes, they exit samadhi. So when they enter samadhi, you are an arhat, but when you exit samadhi, you are a mundane being. No such thing. According to the Vimalakirti Sutra, you're always amid samadhi anytime.
Anytime meditation. Anytime. 没有停止过。做任何事都是精神集中。
It's non-stop at any time. Whatever you do, you're always very focused and single-minded. When you talk about the sutras, Dhamma teaching, also in concentration, like Grandmaster cough and has an itchy throat. Oh, that would be problematic at this era. Luckily, it only happened for a few seconds. As an elderly, even the saliva can make you choke. And if you drink water, it's even easier to choke. As an old person, when you eat and drink, you have to do them slowly. The esophagus and it would make you choke. It happens even when you swallow saliva. And you would know when you reach that age. I remember Master Liu Wenqing, when he was about to speak on the microphone, he would always clearing his throat, and people would say that, oh, he's just kind of whipping us. Do you remember? Every time before he sang or spoke, he always cleared his throat really loudly before he could sing or speak. And Grandmaster didn't have to do that, so that's pretty good. But just once in a while, choking is understandable. I think it was last week that I coughed a couple of times, and immediately in Zoom, someone had said, "Oh, please, Grandmaster, pay attention to your health. Be healthy." Oh, it's so hard to be a guru. I have to hold even when I feel like coughing. It's hard to be a Grandmaster Lu. I just like cough a couple of times, and people immediately paid attention, and they sent me so many throat coughs, drops, and things. Long Jiao San from Taiwan, made in Japan. She sent it to the Reverend Bien, which gave it to me. Thank you for your kind intent.
所以我觉得杂念不要管，你把一坛法整齐的修好很重要。
So don't worry about your myriad thoughts, just complete your Dharma practice. If you don't have much time, then you just do the main part. But if you have time, then you should do the complete Dharma practice. Like if you're on a plane, you can just do the main part. You don't have to do the full preliminary practice. You just get into the main part directly. If you're outside and around many people, you can just do the main part. Visualization, mantra chanting, and entering samadhi. That's the main part. Second question. Why do we have to wait until we have fruition in our preliminary practices before we can engage in the inner tantric practices? Is it because we haven't purified our karma in our body, and speech and mind are not completely pure, so that if we practice the chi channels and light drops, they can be intensified, that it is prone to generate wrong thoughts. So nowadays, people practice four plenary and the inner tantric together. But before, it was step by step, the four plenary practices, the root guru yoga, the main deity yoga, and then the inner tantric practices, and the highest yoga tantra, and the great perfection. That's how it was in the past. But now, people start the inner tantric practices when you start practicing the Yidam deity or deity yoga. And in Grandmaster's opinion, it's fine. So you can do the inner tantric practices when you start practicing the deity yoga, or you can wait until you have fruition in the deity yoga to start the inner tantric practices, because once you can spiritual union with your yidam, it would be easier for you to practice the inner tantric practices because the yidam will guide you. That's the main reason why. So the practice of the chi channels and light drops. The intense chi practice is called the treasure vase energy yoga. Then the energy will change a little bit conspicuously. So, of course, if your mind is not pure, it would affect. So that's why we need to have a pure body, speech, and mind. And for the body, you form the mudra. The speech, you chant the mantra. And then the visualization for the mind. So you need to do all three of them. Of course, if your mind is impure, then your visualization is impure, and then it would generate bad thoughts. Is there similarity between Taoist energy practice and the tantric inner practice? Yes. Is it okay if I practice the Taoist celestial circulation practice first? The major circulation, minor circulation, while doing the four plenary practices, so that upon fruition I can change to do the inner practices? Otherwise, by that time, I might be too old to start practicing inner fire. Are there similarities between Taoist and Tantric Chi practices? Yes. It's not the primary practice. It's a supplementary. Because the visualization of the wheels are different from Tantric visualization.
任脉、督脉，那是道家的名词。
In Taoism, they use the channels of Ren and Du, the major and minor celestial circulations. Those are Taoist.
丹顶的修法是属于道家的名词。
丹顶。
当然有相通。
All those Taoist terms, of course, there are similarities. However,
跟这个道家的是不一样。
The circulation, visualization in tantric practice is different from Taoist. And there are also many different schools in Taoism. And there are many different schools in tantric Buddhism as well. And they are all slightly different. If you're too old, you cannot ignite the inner fire. That's true. Because when you age, your body has weakened and you cannot ignite the inner fire. It's easier to ignite the inner fire when you're young. The ascent and descent of the inner fire has been explained very clearly in Tantric Buddhism. And the fire needs the light drops. And as you age, the light drops will decrease. So the light drops, like the fuel, has decreased. Not like Grandmaster. Grandmaster can speak for a few hours in his Dhamma teaching. That's why, because I still have saliva. But if you have dry mouth, it's impossible for you to talk, to give Dhamma teaching. When you're old, you have to practice your tongue. That's very important. You need to be able to move your tongue so that you can pronounce clearly. Otherwise, people will not understand what you're saying. So that's why old people, what old people say cannot be understood. You have to listen very carefully because their tongue has stiffened. Why? Because they don't have any more saliva, so sometimes they cannot generate sound. So I'm already very good. I still have saliva. Every night, the celestial water or the body chakra, the light drops still descend. And I turn my tongue and to practice the tongue and the speech. So there's still saliva being produced in Grandmaster's body, so that means it's pretty good. And he said that when you're old, you can't ignite the inner fire, and that is true. Because the fire is almost extinguished, and the water is almost dry. How can you? Why do you want to practice inner fire then? So that's how it is when you're old. The water is almost dried up. When you're young, you have so much body chakra water. And also the life-generating palace is also very energetic and dynamic when you're young. Don't think that you want to start training when you're old, because in the cemetery, many that are buried are young people. Question number 4. By doing the Taoist Qi practice, is to make the qi circulate in the two channels of Ren and Tu. And later, switching to do the tantric inner practices, which utilizes central channel, will it help? Yes, of course, because you have the foundation. Let me tell you one thing. When you perform the inner tantric practices, until the qi can flow inside your central channel, then what you experience, what you gain, is the great bliss. As soon as the qi flows inside the central channel, the bliss generated by your body lasts 24 hours. The ecstasy or bliss between a man and a woman only lasted momentarily, and then it's gone. That's due to the movement of the light drops through such a short thing. Just very fast. So you experience the bliss only for such short moment, and then it became cold and you lost your energy and totally weak. But when qi flows in the central channel, gives the same sensation as the light drop moving through that thing. And yet the qi moves up and down and up and down, and that's a 24-hour bliss, non-stop. So even when you sleep at night, you are also opening your channels, and day and night, you're always happy. You're never sad. Only then it's called utmost bliss. So that's the benefit of inner practice. Are there people who have reached such a state? Yes, even the people who are here now, who are always blissful 24 hours a day. They don't need to be in consort practice, just in solitary practice, and always blissful 24 hours a day, because the qi is moving in the channels all the time. As soon as the qi rubs against the channel for a very long, up and down and up and down, 24 hours a day, that's extremely blissful. It's something beyond your imagination unless you experience it yourself. Like when you drink water, how it tastes, the temperature, only you know, and someone has experienced it. So congratulations, that person has experienced the bliss, the great bliss. And afterwards, you also need to experience luminosity or clear light radiance. And then next is to experience emptiness, which is empty nature or Buddha nature. That's the stages of spiritual cultivation. 5:10 already. The teacher asks, "It's my birthday tomorrow, and you're about to graduate. What gift will you give your teacher?" And student A said, "Flower." A flower. B said, "A bouquet of flowers." C said, "Also flowers." And Ming said, I will not give you flowers. That's too common. I will give you something special. And the teacher was pleased and asked him, what are you going to give me? And Ming replied, I will make a circle of flowers, of all the flowers given by the fellow classmates, and then put a photograph in the middle. Ming went to the fortune teller. And the fortune teller said, hey, after the divination, how come you didn't give any money? And left. Oh, couldn't you tell that I didn't have any money? This is too long. Yesterday we were talking about the chapter 1 Buddha verse. In Tantrayana it also exists. What is Buddha verse? As a tantric sadhaka, every morning when you wake up, you want to visualize that where you are is a Buddha verse. And who are you? You are the Yidam. And who's the father? That's the Buddha father. And your mother is the Buddha mother. And your wife? It's Buddha wife. And your children? That's Buddha children. And you are the main deity or Yidam. So your mom, dad, your wife, your children, they're all Buddhas. And your house is transformed into a palace, the palace of your Yidam. And then you go to work. And then your bosses are great bodhisattvas, your co-workers are all bodhisattvas. And the people that you see on the roads are spiritual cultivators in the Buddha verse, Buddha universe. So if you visualize that at any time, that's this chapter on Buddha verse. So what it means here, that Sakyamuni Buddha was in the Amra garden in the city of Vaisali. So there, that was the Buddha verse. Sakyamuni Buddha was the Yidam who was speaking the Dharma. And he was accompanied by 8,000 great monks and 32,000 bodhisattvas. And all the lay practitioners and all people gathered there at the Amra garden. So at such time, that place was a Buddha verse, we can say. Thus have I heard. As we all know, at the beginning of the sutra, there's always this phrase. Ananda remembered everything that he saw, and he could remember many things. All the sutras that Sakyamuni Buddha had spoken would be remembered by Ananda. There was a custom in ancient India, is that when the Guru was speaking up above, the disciples listening cannot take notes, so you only rely on your memory, and Ananda had the great memory. So, thus have I heard, means that I was there and I heard this. Ananda was there and heard it. At one time, at such time, there was the concept of time then. Sakyamuni Buddha was in the garden offered by the lady Amra. That's why it is called Amra Garden. Accompanied by 8,000 great monks or great bhikkhus. Great bhikkhus, which means great monks. I will explain what they are. And 32,000 bodhisattvas. There were 32,000 of them. Some people ask me, so strange. The great bhikkhus, there were 8,000. Did they count them one by one? So let me ask you, how many people are there now in this Homa hall? You can. So someone asked me, did they count one by one, 8,000? And the Bodhisattva was 32,000. How many of them? And Sakyamuni Buddha did not have microphone then. How could they hear the Dharma? How could the 8,000 great bhikkhus hear it? How was the Dharma teaching given? Now we have microphone. Nowadays we need microphone so the sound can travel. Otherwise, how can it be heard? The people were asking me this question. So did they count them one by one for 32,000? No, because the Buddha had the supernormal power. He naturally knew. Arhats too had some supernormal power. They know, so they just counted it spiritually or do it by closing their eyes and the number would appear. So don't be doubtful, don't be skeptical about this. I went to Gridakuta, which is the vulture peak, the place where the Buddha gave Dharma teachings. There were only a few bricks, the seats of the Buddha surrounded by a few bricks. It's about less than half of this Homa hall. It's rectangular. And the mountains and cliffs around it. So then not very long, not very spacious, so just that place. And that's where Sakyamuni Buddha gave Dharma teaching. How many people could fit in there? It's quite limited. So I thought that the great monks and bodhisattvas maybe were hanging on the trees. So at that time, that's what I thought. How many could sit there? Because they always said that like 2,500 Buddhas, 2,500 people gathered. And in the Amitabha Sutra, there were 1,250 people, an assembly of 1,250 people at the Vulture Peak. But when I saw it, I think it could only fit about 200 people. No way it could fit 1,000 people. Maybe they were stacked, or I don't know how they counted. Something is important here about the great bhikkhus or great monks. The so-called bhikkhus are always male. Monks are always males. The four groups of the Sangha, of the believers, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas, upasikas. Upasakas are male lay practitioners and upasika are female lay practitioners. And bhikkhus and bhikkhunis are the ordained Sangha. So the great bhikkhu is typically a monk over 60 years old, or someone who strictly abides by the precepts, like the arhats. They were referred as the great bhikkhus. Now it's 5:22. Can I continue? What is different between Sakyamuni Buddha and Vimalakirti is Sakyamuni Buddha emphasized precepts, keeping the precepts, what can be touched, what cannot be touched, what can be eaten, what cannot be eaten, what kind of place you can live in and what cannot. They are specified what kind of outfit you can wear, what kind of outfit you cannot wear. Sakyamuni Buddha strictly abided by the precepts, and all these great bhikkhus, great monks, and the arhats abided by the precept. They had many very strict precepts or codes of disciplines. They cannot touch the alcohol. In the sutra, it was mentioned that if you serve wine to a monk or to a spiritual cultivator, then you would live for 500 lifetimes without hands. You cannot even touch alcohol and you cannot sip alcohol, not to mention women. This is the rules of Sakyamuni Buddha. It's best that you don't even look at women. So your eyes should not even be in contact with women. When you see a woman is coming, you should look at the ground. You should not look at the woman. So if you really come across a nun, then you should look down to the ground, and you cannot say more than 4 sentences. That's how strict the rule was. Not even over 4 sentences. Not to mention touching, they have a certain distance, as if treating the woman as the COVID virus. So when you see her coming, and you should avoid it and hide. That's the rule. And for your food, no one would cook their own food or snack. No such thing. No snacks. No snacking. Or they eat while watching TV and lifting their legs for the monks and nuns. No such thing. Not allowed. They only eat once a day. once a day.
而且吃的饭是托钵的，
And it's from the alms
没
begging.
有厨房的，
No
哪里来的冰
kitchen.
箱？
You're not allowed to cook.
冰
No
箱也不可以
fridge.
用，
No
也不可
refrigerators.
以用。
They cannot use
我听
any
说你们这
kitchens.
个比丘尼，
I heard that monks and nuns, they have like 2 or 3 refrigerators and only for themselves, cannot be used by other people. In the future, we have to inspect all the
什
storms
么东西呀？整理好，棉被叠好，
and your
东西
beds.
收好。
You need to make your bed,
你的
clean up,
的地方
tidy up.
灰尘都不可以有，
There shouldn't be any dust at all.
规矩很多的。
There are many rules as for your
住树下，
residence or
住中
abode.
间，浮木跟
In the past, you live under the tree, in between the tombs,
山里面的岩
and in the caves, or under the trees.
中间，坟墓跟坟墓的中间就是你的床。
So your bed is in between 2 tombs. Now you have beds, but no such thing before. So spiritual cultivation is
日食一
a
餐，
hardship.
那个食物拿过
You
来，
just eat
你
once
要
a
幻
day.
想，
So when you get your food, you need to
幻
visualize
想成为粪便，
that the delicious food is visualized to become poo.
喝的是尿，
So you eat poo and drink pee.
所以禅人上师教的不错。
So what Master Changden taught us in Cantonese was good.
法西秧苗，
That the
法西秧
monks
苗，法西
or the Dharma teachers eat poo and drink.
教那个佛经国际广东话的时候，先教
When he taught Cantonese to Fo Qing and Fo Chi, first he taught them
真的，那时候的大比丘就是
the Farsi.
每根秧苗，
Farsi eats poo and
先把
drinks
食
pee.
物观成为粪
And they
便，
did in the ancient time.
是最脏的东西。
So they visualized them to be poo and pee, the dirtiest
这
stuff,
两个字
before they eat them. No such thing as delicious
叫做
food.
犯戒。
If you don't do it, then you violate the precepts.
卧的，跟你讲，睡觉，
For sleep,
在岩洞里面，
as I said,
找一个岩洞
inside
里
the
面
caves.
在那里休息。
So you practice inside the
大
caves,
树底下，
under the trees,
坟墓跟坟墓的中间，
in between the tombs.
现在的修行人比较小，以前释迦牟尼有时
But
代，
spiritual cultivators nowadays
严格才能
enjoy
食、穿衣服、
the
清
so
色
for food and clothing's
不能
all
够
the same.
带衣，
You cannot have any
你没有出息的
embellishments.
现在还有银行，
You cannot touch money. Now you have accounts at the banks. You cannot even touch money then.
这才叫做大比丘啊！
Only then you're referred as the great monks or great bhikkhus.
你们现在的比丘是小，
Nowadays you're just tiny
什么
bhikkhu.
大比丘？那时候的大比丘是这样子的，
How can you be referred as the great bhikkhu?
青色
The great bhikkhu then was like that.
脏的颜色，
Food,
花
clothing,
花绿绿的，
it's very plain and simple. Nothing too decorative.
过午不食，日食
And for food, you don't eat afternoon once a day, and you just eat from
青
alms
色，
begging,
这是脏的衣服。住
and the clothings are the dirty clothings.
树下，
And you live in caves under the trees between the tombs,
赤脚，
and you travel or transport by walking bare
现
feet.
在不是了，不一样了，赤脚
Now it's different.
啊，食衣住行
That's how they live their lives. Only then they are referred as the great bhikkhus. And that's a true spiritual cultivation. So now you know. So all these great bhikkhus followed Sakyamuni Buddha, cultivated spiritually this way. They were not wearing any jewelries or embellishments like Grandmaster, jades and precious jewels. But I'm just fulfilling the wishes of sentient beings, because when I wear them, the people who offered them to me are very happy, very pleased. So I'm just following the wishes of sentient beings. So now it's different. Look at the outfits that Grandmaster is wearing, very bright and colorful. So it's different. But the great bhikkhus of the ancient time was like what I mentioned. So although Grandmaster is wearing all this, and it seemed very bright, but in reality my life is very simple and frugal. Up till today, this past 3 years, I only spent money on gas to fill the gas for the cars. I have not bought anything. Everything I use were given or offered by disciples, including this Lama outfit, my underwear, underpants, my bag, everything that I wear, all given by disciples, including the underwear, undershirt and underpants. Even the underpants. And the undershirts too. I never bought any of them. Have I spent any money? No. For this past 3 years, except for
go to gas station, buy gas. 没有花，另外1毛钱都没有花。
I haven't spent a cent except for gas.
现在跟大家解释大比丘是怎么回事。So
that's my explanation for the great bhikkhus, because they abided by the precepts. That's why they are referred to as the great bhikkhus or great monks. Or else someone that's above 60 years old, a monk that's above 60 years old. So the great bhikkhu have to abide by the major precepts of the 3 altars and more. So that's my explanation, so that it leaves impression on you.
有位傅先生富甲四方，娶了小老婆。娶进门的那天晚上，大老婆虽然不爽，但还是很礼貌地问傅先生讲。
Mr. Fu got the second wife, and the first wife was unhappy but still very polite and asked, "So, whom would you sleep with tonight?" So, but we are educated, so this is too plain. So if I drink red wine, I would sleep with you. If I drink white wine, I would sleep with the second wife. So today, we just bought white wine, so I'll sleep with the white wine. And then so the wife asks again, "So what wine would you drink tonight?" So he wants white wine again. And on the third night, the first wife asked again, "So what wine would you drink tonight?" And Mr. Fu said, I drank white wine last night and it felt really smooth, so I will drink white wine again and see if it would become dry. And then after 3 nights in a row, the first wife couldn't stand it anymore. Can you use your red wines to serve the guests? Oh, many baby home.
非常感谢法王圣尊莲生活佛精彩宝贵的法语开示。
We are very grateful to His Holiness precious Dharma teaching.
恭请世尊带领大家顶礼坛城。
Now we will pay homage to the altar, and in a moment there would be the empowerment of Red Jambala. And during the empowerment, please remember that you visualize the deity, form the mudra, and recite the mantra. Please remember to return your receivers before you leave tonight. Thank you very much. This ends the English interpretation today. Thank you.
顶礼坛城做观想大礼拜，一拜根本传承上师及诸佛。嗡啊吽，观想顶礼，回天心三印，二拜诸菩萨。嗡啊吽，观想顶礼，回天心三印，三拜诸护法金刚。嗡啊吽，观想顶礼，回天心三印，四平等一起手。恭请师尊以布达展视频接受众线上的众弟子感恩之心。 非常感谢师尊，感谢众线上的同门，下周见，谢谢大家。谢谢师尊，谢谢大家，下周见。
谢谢师尊，师尊厉害，谢谢师尊，公家厉害，恭喜你们的成功，公家师尊，然后谢谢师尊，我也去了，你有来的师尊，感恩师尊大家的帮助，师尊可爱。
恭请师尊赐授红财神法灌顶，含皈依灌顶。
Ganapati is so hot. 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 Om Namo 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 Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha 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 Om Namo Namo Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha Om Namo Namo Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha 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 Om Namo Namo Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha Ganapati Soha Om Namo Namo Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha 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 Om Namo Namo Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha Om Namo Namo Ganapati Kakakaka Ganapati Guru Marupataru Pakataya Ganapati Soha 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 Ganapati Soha
还没有接受灌顶的义工同们，请你们来接受灌顶。灌顶很快就即将要结束了。还没有接受灌顶的义工同们，请你们来接受灌顶。灌顶即将就要结束了。我们一起顶礼感恩，谢谢师尊。
弟兄加持，弟兄加持，